Good afternoon, my name is Robert Kabikoff. I'm a New York City actor. I've lived here all my life. Before I was an actor, I was in the trucking business for about 12 years. Before I was in the trucking business, I was a maniac. So this is a story about when I was a maniac, or when I evolved from maniac to not so much of a maniac. Still a little bit, but manageable. Anyway, I was about 22 years old, and I had just been released from serving a year in the county lockup. Why I was there is a story for another time, but it was a year, and when I got out, I was pretty much open to suggestion, meaning I was scared shitless. I was scared that although I had managed to get by this year relatively unscathed, that it was like a warning that if I don't change courses, I'm going back, and the next time I go back, it's going to be for keeps. You know, a little voice of reason told me that, and I had grounds to believe that voice. So when I came out, I managed to connect myself with a community of people who were in similar circumstances. For one reason or another, they'd come to a crossroads in their life, and they had to make a crucial change to avoid catastrophe. One of the members of this community was an ex-mechanic for a major airline. Very, very talented guy, huge man, funny, gregarious, intelligent, but a, degenerate gambler. He could not stop, and consequently, he owed money all over the 5 boroughs. Everybody from household finance to the local bookies and loan sharks to probably the United States Treasury. Everyone was after this guy for money, and not surprisingly, every now and again, even though we were trying to help each other, as I said, in this community, to get away from one of the 7 deadly sins that were afflicting us, he would invite me to go to the racetrack with him, interestingly enough. I guess he couldn't get it totally out of his system right away. And I was never a gambler like that. I'm not a game player. I don't like watching games. I don't like betting on games. But, if I'm in that circumstance and if the World Series is on, I'll watch it. If it's right in front of me and it looks like fun, I'll get involved. And I didn't have a lot to do, so he said to me, come on, let's go down to the track, let's go down to the track. Now, at this time, oh man, I'm going on too long. At this point in my life, what's important for you to know is I was counting pennies. I was living on like maybe $2, $3, maybe $5 a day, this is the early 80s, to live on for food. So I was very, very careful about how I spent my money. I would have like $1.50 breakfast special, that's a roll and a cup of coffee, and that's it, and a napkin, and then I'd have a $2 lunch and a $3 dinner. I was really counting my pennies. I was just putting myself back together after this excursion into lockup. So I didn't want to go to the racetrack. I wasn't, there was no budget for gambling and losing. Anyway, I go down with him to the racetrack, and he says, I'm watching him sitting there. He's like going for the whole afternoon, and it's not even interesting to me. And he looks at me and he says, Rob, it's a little more interesting if you put down some money. Just a little bit. He says, I'll tell you what. He says, the next bet is a $2 bet, the next race, and why don't we just split it? I'll put up $1, you put up $1, and you'll see how much more entertaining the race is. So I figured, okay, what the hell, that makes sense. And I know I'm not coming back here other than with him, and he's probably not going to invite me again. So I went down to the window and I gave him my $1. Now we're watching the race. So of course, yeah, it's a hell of a lot more interesting. At this stage in my life, I have to re-express that everything was ominous and meaningful and transcendent. In other words, I was in an existential crisis. That's the phrase, existential crisis. And that's for real. That wasn't in my head. That was actually happening. So I had to grab everything I could hold on to for dear life until I felt confident enough to let go and get to the next room. So I'm watching the race, and I'm thinking to myself, oh man, what did I do? I'm just going to lose, and that'll be my coffee for tomorrow morning, Really, it was like that. Anyway, I'm watching the race. Now I'm riveted. And I'm closing my eyes, and I looked up into the sky, and I looked up, and I said, it's hard to say because it's true. I said, God, I just want my $1 back. At the time, I was drinking a cup of coffee or a soda, and I said, what I told you I said, I swallowed the last sip of coffee, soda, and I looked down into the cup, and there was a dried, folded $1 bill in the bottom of the cup. That's my story.